Welcome to A Moment of Zen. Time to sit back and relax as model, actress, mentor, and supermom Zen Sams takes you on a sexy and wild ride, covering the latest in film, fashion, pop culture, cryptocurrency, fintech, cannabis, and entertainment from the Millennial Mom's perspective. Here's your host, Zen Sams.
Hello, my beautiful friends and loyal listeners. It's always a pleasure to spend my time with you on the airwaves. Thank you for listening and interacting with me on social media. That truly does make it all worthwhile. Please make sure to follow me at Zen Sams. That's Zen with an X, not a Z. And remember that we're now on TV. Tune in at impact.kpmedia.tv and catch a moment of Zen on the Impact live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are now available on demand. We have such a great show lined up for you today. In our Millennial Mom segment, brought to us by ogpay.com, we are featuring Malina Malkani, a registered dietitian, a best-selling author, speaker, and a single mom of 3. She is a top nutrition influencer and trusted expert in local and national media outlets. Today, we are chatting about the recent headliner, what is grass-fed butter and beef, and are they more nutritious than the regular versions? In our Business and Buzz segment by Revere Securities, we're featuring life coach and book publishers Jay and Lina Noland. Lina is a powerhouse Latina, born and raised in Colombia. She's an amazing entrepreneur and lifelong partner to Jay, currently supporting the family businesses. Now, Jay Nolan is an accomplished entrepreneur, author, and life coach who has dedicated his life to helping others become successful and grow their businesses. Now, as a former professional baseball player for the San Diego Padres, he knows discipline. Today, we are chatting about life coaching and if there's a science to getting rich. As per their latest publishing accolade, re-releasing the famous 1910 Wallace Wattles book, The Science of Getting Rich. In our Crypto Frontier segment brought to you by CCP Digital, we have the pleasure of chatting with Yat Su, co-founder and chairman of Animoca Brands, which is a global leader in blockchain games. Today, we are chatting about how Animoca is aiming to bring K-pop to the Metaverse, and we will also chat about how they are leveraging blockchain to build a new education system that is independent of schools and governments. We're chatting all things Tinytap. In our new Politigal segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we have Patriot artist Scott Lebado chatting all things patriotism, his new documentary film, The Relentless Patriot, and we'll also get Scott's opinion on where America has gone wrong. Stay tuned for our Millennial Mom segment brought to us by OG Pay. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back with Malina Malkani.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Tempus, the next generation of the engagement economy, allowing people to make money on their data and earn cryptocurrency for the time they spend on things they already currently love to do. With Tempus, brands will have the ability to pay you directly for interacting with apps, watching videos, playing games, and more. Tempus. The time is now. Engage and earn.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Up in just a few minutes in our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by ogpay.com, we're featuring Malina Malkani, a registered dietitian, a best-selling author, speaker, and a single mom of 3 behind the Instagram and TikTok handles at healthy.mom.healthy.kids. It's basically healthy mom, healthy kids with dots in between. She's a top nutrition influencer and trusted expert in local and national media outlets. She owns a nutrition consulting company and a private practice. You can check her out at malinamalkani.com, which is really dedicated to helping parents feed their babies and kids with total confidence. She's the author of Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning, How to Integrate Foods, Manage Portion Sizes, and Identify Allergens, and the creator of 2 online courses for parents, Baby-Led Feeding Course.com and SolvePickyEating.com. Very useful websites. Today, we're chatting about the recent headliner, what is grass-fed butter and beef, and are they more nutritious than the regular versions? Now, grass-fed butter, along with grass-fed beef and other grass products that all fall within the grass-fed media nature, have experienced a surge of trendiness in recent years. Sales of grass-fed meat have grown among consumers and are projected to contribute to a global grass-fed beef market of close to $14 billion by 2025. Now, many of the shoppers opting for grass-fed beef may also choose to buy grass-fed butter. Other customers, however, may still be wondering what actually constitutes as grass-fed products. And the big question, are they actually more healthful than non-grass-fed products? And here to chat some more is Malina Malkani. Welcome to the show, my stunner.
Hello, Zen. It is so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, clear all this up for me. Okay, what's up with this notion of grass-fed, whether for reasons of flavor, nutrition, or animal welfare, right? Obviously, we need to be sure to carefully read labels and certifications to understand how it was produced. Talk to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some misconceptions about that. But just for bottom line, in terms of potential health benefits, there are some potential health benefits and some differences. Grass-fed beef does have less fat, and it has, as a result, fewer calories than regularly produced beef. They have between like 2 and 6% more omega-3 fatty acids than regular beef, which is really helpful in terms of fighting inflammation, supporting heart health, in terms of the growth and development of the growing brain for children, really important during those early years. It's higher in some nutrients, grass-fed beef, vitamins A, E, some of the B vitamins, more antioxidants than grain-fed, which makes sense when you consider that grass-fed cows are grazing on greens, basically they're grazing on grass. And this is significant lower levels of saturated fat. But both are high quality sources of protein. They're both rich in heme iron, which is more absorbable. So there's a lot of similarities as well as differences. In terms of butter, grass-fed butter is going to have more beta carotene. They're both going to be high in vitamin A, but more of the antioxidant beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, but it also helps with vision, reproduction, immune function. More omega-3 fatty acids in the grass-fed butter, and also up to 500% more of something called CLA, which is a conjugated linoleic acid, may be helpful in terms of battling heart disease, but it's unclear if this is really a benefit. We need more research.
Right. Wow. These are some pretty significant differences. I mean, you would think bird's eye view, not a big difference, but if you really break it down the way you just did, I would want grass-fed products versus, the regular versions. And if you look at the sales of grass-fed meat have really grown among consumers who really value taste and health, as well as, who really care about animal welfare, as do I. And when shopping for beef products, this is maybe more important to some versus others, but other customers, however, are kind of wondering if all these labels, organic, grass-fed, non-GMO, make a difference at all in our overall health. Is it important to feed our kids organic and grass-fed? I did, and I still do. What are your thoughts?
It really depends on a bunch of different factors, which are like so many things in nutrition. It depends, first of all, on how often you're eating these foods. Like, for example, in my family with my 3 girls, I'm a single mom. We eat predominantly plant-based, maybe 75 to 80%. So with the very limited number of times that we're eating beef, for example, per month, whether we choose grass-fed or conventionally produced isn't going to really move the needle in terms of overall health. And to be fair, we don't have compelling evidence that choosing grass-fed over regular beef moves the needle in terms of overall health. But we really need more. We need more information now, and more compelling research. But if you look at what some of your goals are, if you're someone who is at risk for heart disease already, if you have high LDL levels to begin with, that's the bad cholesterol that can contribute to heart disease at higher levels, and you're eating beef and butter regularly, then choosing grass-fed versions may actually help move the needle for you. So it depends on a lot of different factors, and you really need to consider individual to individual.
Yeah, and for sure that makes a lot of sense. And really, this increase in concern for health and wellness is really driving a change in consumer preferences, right? The focus is now on foods that are overall healthy and minimally processed, at least from myself and my family. For instance, even in Canada, organic food is no longer perceived as luxury food that can be afforded by high income people. In regards to price points, the market in Canada is relatively competitive in nature, but here in the US, organic costs like 20% more. What do you say to this? And does eating organic reduce risks of cancer? I know it's a touchy one for you.
It's a big one. I mean, when I consider organic versus conventional, what I'm usually talking about this in the context of produce, fruits and vegetables. And like absolutely, the benefits of eating more fruits and vegetables, if it's not within your budget to buy organic, and it's a question of not eating fruits and vegetables as opposed to buying organic, I would say 100 times over, we need to eat more fruits and vegetables. We don't have evidence that organically grown fruits and vegetables are healthier per se. Same thing goes for grass-fed beef. Are there going to be individual potential health benefits for some of these specific nutrients? Yes. But with the rising costs of food and inflation, I would never want families to feel like they are doing their children a disservice by not purchasing organic. And there's a lot of misconceptions too when it comes to grass-fed beef in particular, with regard to antibiotics and growth hormones. You really need to understand the labels. And Consumer Reports actually put out recently, actually, I don't know how recent it was, but they have a great chart that can help break down some of the different labels associated with buying beef, because grass-fed doesn't necessarily mean that the meat was never treated with antibiotics or growth hormones. Only grass-fed organic is going to guarantee that. So so there's a lot of details with regard to labels that are important to understand in order to make a very informed purchase.
It's interesting because when I gave birth to my daughter in 2016, she's 2.5, she's 6.5 now. But when I gave birth to her, I was very, very adamant about buying only organic, only, grass-fed when I did feed her beef. And in my mind, I thought she's a developing body, a developing mind. If I'm ever going to splurge on my food budget, it's now that she's a baby and she's absorbing it all. Now that she's going to be 7 soon, I'm less concerned about, whether it's organic or grass-fed, and more so about portion control and her understanding, the balance between eating plenty of fruits and vegetables. But for a moment there, I have to say, Malina, that I was only and obsessed with organic because in my mind, I'm thinking high cancer rates, growth hormones. I don't want her eating, pesticides. So it did affect me for a little bit. And I don't know if it's because I just bought into the media hype, but it definitely drove me to only buy organic for a good portion of her life.
Yeah, I mean, I understand as parents, we are so driven to nourish our babies and our children to the best of our ability. And that best, there's so many different factors that go into that. What is best for each family. And I understand that impetus. Their bodies are so tiny, and they're not eating large quantities of food. And so we want that food to be nutrient dense. We want it to be nourishing them in as many ways possible. And that's one great thing about beef in general, because especially for infants, when they're starting solids at that 6-month mark, their iron stores are low. Those wonderful iron stores that they've built up in utero, really, they've gotten to a point where they need to start getting that iron from food sources. And beef is a fantastic source of very highly absorbable iron.
Yep.
So, beef is a wonderful early food for babies. Of course, we have to offer it in an infant safe form. But I understand exactly what you're saying. That you want to provide the best that you possibly can for your baby at that point.
100%. And beef and butter, those are staples, right? Like butter has been around for thousands of years, dating back to the domestication of cattle. And grass-fed or not, it contains, like you said, a myriad of nutrients, vitamins, and benefits for our health. And butter is a staple ingredient in homes around the world. So overall, I truly believe that moderation is key. Not limiting oneself to really anything is a great way to avoid temptation. So I kind of live by that notion.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't agree more. And, if it's within your budget and if it's within, it's also a convenience factor. There are some areas of the country where it's really inconvenient to try and find grass-fed, let alone grass-fed, organically produced beef and butter. So if it's within your budget, great. But I would never want anyone to feel that they're doing their family a disservice if they cannot either afford it and or access it.
Well said. Well, that brings us at the end of our segment, but thank you so much for coming on and enlightening us. You are just a library of information when it comes to this stuff. Can't wait to have you back on.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good to meet you.
Absolutely. Guys, listen, a new study finds that exercising to make up for eating poorly doesn't really work in terms of lowering mortality risks. Similarly, eating well but remaining inactive may help lower your risk of dying from certain cancers to a degree, but does nothing for cardiovascular disease mortality. And researchers also observed that those who exercise the most and consume the healthiest food significantly reduced their risk of dying from all causes across the board. That was our Millennial Mom segment brought to you by ogpaid.com. Definitely check out MalinaMalkani.com, babyledfeedingcourse.com, and solvepickeyeating.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Revere Securities. Revere is committed to building a relationship of trust in which they work closely with you to help you define your objectives, explore alternatives, and choose the financial and investment strategies that are most appropriate for you. Go to reveresecurities.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sands. Up next in our Business and Buzz segment brought to us by Revere Securities, we're featuring Jay and Lina Noland, and we are chatting about life coaching and if there is a science to getting rich. Now, the coaching industry is tremendous. 71,000 life coaches based in 161 countries worldwide. Life coaching is the second fastest growing industry in the US, and there are close to 24,000 coaching practitioners in North America alone. Now, the estimated global revenue from coaching in 2019 was close to $2.9 billion overall. But a search for coaches on LinkedIn brought in over 6.5 million results in 2021. Now, Jay Nolan is an accomplished entrepreneur and coach who has dedicated his life to helping others become successful in life and grow their business. And as a former professional baseball player for the San Diego Padres, the Colorado Rockies, and the Seattle Mariners, he naturally injects extreme discipline and focus, leading his clients to their success. Now, Jay turned into a businessman extraordinaire with an unparalleled gift of connecting with people, and for that reason. He's also a loving husband, a father, and a philanthropist supporting organizations that help women who have been victims of domestic abuse, even trafficking, and orphans in Kenya, Africa, that he greatly supports. He is here today with his amazing wife, Lina, a powerhouse Latina born and raised in Colombia. She's an amazing entrepreneur, and she is passionately involved in their businesses she owns together with her husband. They are the proud founders of mypublishing.com, currently promoting a 100-year-old book that claims that it can change your life forever, The Science of Getting Rich. Now, in 1910, Wallace Wattles originally wrote The Science of Getting Rich, where he explains all a person needs to know to go from poverty and obscurity to wealth. Quote, the very best thing you can do for the whole world is to make the most of yourself. That's what he said himself. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Oh man, we're so glad to be here. Hey Zen.
Jay, so happy to talk to you, and I'm so excited that you brought your beautiful wife with you. I can't wait to really dive right into the secrets to what your successes have been. Let's start off. Can you tell us a little bit about what brought you to this particular career path after being a professional athlete?
Well, I wanted to transfer the disciplines into something that could reward me like it was being a professional athlete. And one thing then I found is that when I played professional baseball, I couldn't bring my family and friends down on the field with me, no matter how much I wanted to. And so when I got and decided to become an entrepreneur, I realized the power of owning a business, but the interaction with the people that you have. and the people you can bring on the journey, not just your staff, but even like with your customers, your clients, you're deeply involved. So it's a lot different than when I played professional baseball, where he was kind of like isolated. So what I decided to do was I said, let me find something that drives me. And it took me, just a few months to kind of get my teeth sunk into what I was passionate about. And it was marketing, it was business, and it was people. And I've been loving it for almost 27 years.
Well, you're really good at it, so keep doing it. God bless you. Lina, how are you, my beautiful?
Oh, thank you so much. I'm doing amazing, like every single day. So excited to be with you here.
Thank you. Well, you are a successful business leader. Which attributes do you think were the most instrumental to you and to your husband's success?
I think part of the success is when you go down, when you touch bottom, but you keep that positivity and you keep strong and you just look up. Because those hard moments in life that make you stronger. And we believe part of our philosophy is that if you build strong people, you're able to do anything, no matter what. People can take you everything from your hands, from your life, but if everything that you have here, nobody can take it away from you. So if you are you have a strong mindset, you can build anything. And I learned that from my dad too. I grew up in a family where my dad is an entrepreneur. He built his own business from nothing, and now he's one of the most recognized business in Colombia. So I think, I had it in my blood, and we, with my husband, pretty much we put it together into being a strong mindset people.
I love it. I love it. You definitely do have that strong Colombian mindset. So Jay, you got your hands full there.
Absolutely.
Okay, talk to me, Jay. Talk to me about this notion quoted on one of your websites. There is a science of getting rich. It is an exact science like algebra or arithmetic. There are certain laws which govern the process of acquiring riches. And once a person learns and obeys these laws, they will get rich with mathematical certainty. So no matter one's circumstances, this book claims that one can achieve a rich and happy life, becoming creators by aligning ourselves with natural laws and working as one with the universal mind. Talk to me about this notion.
Rhonda Byrne, the author and founder of The Secret, that just took the world by storm. I got an opportunity to hear an interview that she did last year. Now, I was always a major fan of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, written in 1937. Rhonda Byrne talked about this 1910 book that she read right when one of her parents had died. She was $2 million down in her business. She was sick. She was about to have an emotional breakdown, and one of her adult daughters handed her this old copy of a book. It was called The Science of Getting Rich. She read it in 90 minutes, she said. She said within 90 minutes, it changed her life, and it inspired her to create The Secret. So then this was so, I could just feel her energy that I was like, man, I keep hearing about this book. Let me go read it. So when I read it, after 2 chapters, I knew that I wanted to go not just read it, but teach it. And then after 4 chapters, I was like, I've got to republish it with our publishing company, because the language in 1910 was more masculine. When a man does this, when a man does that. It wasn't that they were excluding women, but it was like the language. But I said, if I could take the masculinity out of it, instead of when a man does this, put when a person does this. Yeah. And so they don't have any conflict. I didn't want any women around the globe to have any conflict when reading this book. So that's why we did it. And so the mathematical certainty that he's talking about goes all the way back to creation, that he says there's a thinking stuff, an energy that creates all things, which in its original state permeates, penetrates, and fills the inner spaces of the entire universe. So Wallace Wattles teaches that everything you see is interconnected. And it's impossible to have a thought and that thought not turn into a thing. That's why we got to be careful about how we think. Yeah. And so if you think just the right way and you impress that on the right energy, it's just like planting a seed in the ground. That seed is going to try to come up and become the most it can be, and without any guilt. And so there's a lot of principles there that we can really hammer in on, but that's like the basis of it.
Wow, wow. I got chills. I got chills, brother. I got chills. It's just the concepts. It's everything that I live by anyhow. I would love to read it so I can have my own validation. But, it's not like you rewrote you rewrote the wheel here. It's just you're just teaching how to spin it, right? So I love it that you discovered this book and dusted it off. Lina, your husband has authored a book himself called 365 Quotes to Make You Better. Can you share your favorite life lesson?
Well, with this book, I just love it because the way this book started, for many years, every single day, he just posts a quote, whatever is happening during the day, or just to inspire somebody. And in 2020, when the virus come, and it was so much going on out there, we was just thinking, how can we pour into people? And it come into an idea of why we don't grab all those quotes that you have posted on social media, and we put them in a book where everybody can open that book in any day and just learn from that quote. And I even have it in my closet, because that's where, like, the closet is like where it's like my own space. We have kids and the family and everything. So every morning I just open that book and I read any quote. And I think the quote that changed me the most is when he talks about you have to have a good day no matter what. So when we wake up and life is gonna be lifing on us no matter what, we cannot change that. And it's the way we overcome things, the way we see things. If we stay happy, if we stay positive, things, it's always gonna rain, but the sun is gonna come out.
That's
So
right.
I love that book because any day you just open it and it doesn't matter what is happening in the life. It's like if that quote is talking to you.
There
So
you go. Words on a page coming alive. Well said. Well said.
yes.
I live by two quotes that I really, really love. I don't know if they're part of your book, but I can't wait to read your book. Mine is "Chin up or the crown falls," and go where there is no path, and of course, leave a trail.
I love it.
Yeah. So Jay, as co-founder of the Nolan Family Foundation, you currently sponsor hundreds of orphans internationally. Talk to me about the program and how can people get involved?
But
You have about 2 minutes.
Okay, so let me tell you, this is like one of my passions. In 2010, I found out about an orphanage school in Kenya, Africa, that had a lot of orphans that needed help and assistance. So what I decided to do was attach my company. And every time we do a sale, we take a piece of that, and then we would impact and help out these orphans. And, first it was like 10, 20, 30, and all of a sudden it was 100 and 200. And it's been as much as 370 kids. Now, with the pandemic and everything that's went on, it's been challenging the last couple of years. And we've had some issues that happened with some sudden losses because of the virus globally, because the care internationally is a little bit, as far as the standard in some of these third world countries. But here's the key. We've been able to help not only in Kenya, we've been able to do things in South America, in Colombia, and then also here in the United States of America with battered women and children. We've been able to impact these organizations. So at the heart of it, my whole philosophy is let's change lives while making money. And so I believe they go hand in hand. And so I want to encourage people that if you want to know how to be able to do it, we've got hands-on. So if you reach out to us on social media, myself, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, easy to find. My wife the same way. We can show you how to make money while also making an impact.
And that's key, because I always said, the higher the rise, the greater the fall. If you rise too quickly with not giving back and balancing out, not just your wealth, but everything that you're receiving in some way, to just output it back, to balance it all out, it's never going to be right. There's always going to be the risk of it, disappearing just as fast as it came. Right. But if you do things methodically, if you do things on a community level, if you do things knowing that you're doing something to make a change and really pave the way for our children and our generation, then the sky's the limit. So we're out of time. I want to thank you both so much for coming on. What an enlightening segment. You guys are inspirational, not only to the world and by the literature that you're writing and putting out there, but I'm sure to the very family ecosystem that you have amongst yourselves. So congratulations on all your success.
We really appreciate you having us and can't wait to collaborate some more in your station. What a wonderful blessing to have someone like you out there on the front lines helping and impacting people. Guys,
you definitely have to check them out. Go on their website, xpmentor.com. Also, The Science of Getting Rich, getsogr.com. And you can follow them on the gram at jnoland now and at link ANYOMA. Okay, definitely check them out. A force to be reckoned with. That was our Business and Buzz segment brought to you by Revere Securities. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. That was Jay and Lina Noland. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CCP Digital, bringing you a view from inside blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. Introducing the latest Blockchain Heroes series, Retro Rebellion NFT collectible card packs from the Nifty Company. Available January 2022. Find out more online at ccpdigital.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to our Crypto Frontier segment brought to you by CCP Digital. And today we have the pleasure of chatting with Yat Siu. He's co-founder and executive chairman of Animoca Brands, which is a global leader in blockchain games. And recently, Animoca completed the second phase of a $75 million funding round from earlier this year that valued the company at close to $6 billion. Now, Animoca saying it will use the funds to invest in more games and advance the vision for the open metaverse. Today, we're chatting about how Animoca Brands is aiming to bring K-pop to the metaverse, and we will also chat about how they are leveraging blockchain to build a new education system that is independent of schools and governments. That's correct. You heard me. Have you heard of Tinytap? Animoca acquired more than 80% of the educational tech company for close to $39 million in cash and shares. Now, Tinytap, founded back in 2012, is a platform that enables educators to create and post content, a model known as user-generated content, UGC, all while earning a usage-based share of revenue. Now, this is very interesting. The Israeli-based company is the world's largest educational games library, offering some 200,000 activities from educators and publishers, including Sesame Street and Oxford University Press. Now, as a mom, this piques my interest. Animoca said it's going to use Tinytap's platform to generate educational blockchain-related content. Now, by acquiring them, Animoca is going to leverage blockchain to make new opportunities available to these educators worldwide, allowing them to generate equity from their creations while offering parents, that's me, enhanced learning opportunities for their kids. A win-win for all. Leveraging blockchain to build a new education system that is independent of schools and governments is what I want to hear more about. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Congrats on the Tinytap acquisition.
Thank you so much.
This is fascinating to me. Empowering educators to create engaging learning activities that can reach millions of kids directly and that enable them to earn based on their success. The success of these creations. Please tell me more about this very proprietary model and your long-term mission.
So Tinytap is unique in that it is the largest teacher marketplace on mobile today. Serves 8.6 million families at the moment and has over 100,000 content creators. Some of them are large learning platforms like Oxford University Press, but most of the content is made by teachers from all over the world, actually a lot of American teachers. And one of the things that we found most fascinating with the whole NFT space, of course, and Web3, is that it actually allows providing more equity and more value into the hands of people who deserve it more. And in this particular case, teachers are, in fact, one of the largest content, if not the largest content creators in the world. They make teaching content for children every day, except the problem is that most of that content is only sort of momentary. And the value of that content can actually be shared across other teachers or parents around the world who might find it useful, because after all, our children are all a little bit different. Everyone has different learning styles. Whatever is taught in one school with one parent, with one teacher, in one method isn't suitable for all of them. So what Tinytap managed to do is create this sort of diverse teaching platform where parents can go and just buy the content that is most suitable for their child to learn math in a certain way, or to learn English, or to learn different languages a particular way. That's kind of what Tinytap did. Now, the reason we acquired it is because we figured out that with Web3, we can take this platform that today teachers already make money from. Maybe they make $100, maybe they make $200. Some teachers make over $10,000 to $20,000 a year on Tinytap. So there's a number of them already make decent money. But when you embed that in Web3, you can actually have capital formation, as you've seen with NFT artists or blockchain gaming. And that means that you as a parent or as a platform, you can buy this content and you can earn the royalties from this. Now, a teacher who makes $1,000 a year on a piece of content, that's good, relatively speaking to what a teacher makes, which is unfortunately not as much as they should. But if you actually buy the content of, on the basis of a yield, knowing that this content makes $1,000 a year, as an investor, you can now pay maybe 5 or 10 times the price, meaning, let's say for a 10% yield, that $1,000 a year content is now worth $10,000.
Wow.
If you give a teacher $10,000 in one go, that changes their lives. It's completely different. And what it also does is it creates a new economic model for teachers and teaching content so they can actually enjoy the benefits of the kind of capital formation that we've seen in Web3 and the whole NFT marketplace.
I love it. I mean, this Tinytap offers educators really an alternative channel to generate real revenue. And it's interesting because when you break it down, right, whenever a family essentially purchases or renews a Tinytap subscription, the subscription profit, which is the subscription revenue minus customer acquisition cost, thus generated, is allocated to be shared with content creators. So the amounts earned by individual content creators are determined by the engagement generated by their content. I think this is fabulous. And I see a similar theme here in the play to earn models. Talk to me more about blockchain's use cases in the education sector and the monetization model behind Tinytap going into the metaverse.
Well, one of the things, maybe just quickly, as you mentioned, play to earn, one of the things that's important to mention about play to earn, or play and earn as they call it now, is the fact that, everything that we do in a platform today online creates network effects. These network effects have value. But of course, we don't understand what it is because only the platform itself can measure it. And so in 99% of the time, sort of case, like when we use Facebook or other platforms like that, they actually take the network effect from us and they derive value from it. And they never tell us how much it's worth. So we all think it's okay to just give it away. And so what happened with the innovation on play to earn with blockchain gaming is all it really did was it took the network effects and created a value around it, which you could then share to the end users. Because after all, if we play games, and nobody else is there to play games, even the ones who play for free, well, then there's no value, and the people who pay money for the games wouldn't pay for it either. So the sharing of that network effect and the distribution of value for that network effect is really what play to earn sort of brought forward. And the same is true basically with education and what can happen in Tinytap. And there's two sort of ways to look at it. The first one is anyone who learns content, in fact, is adding to the network effect as well. When you're a student and you're actually in a classroom, when you're participating, you're actually adding value to the network. You're adding value to the classroom. You're not just sort of sitting there and just taking in content. You're contributing, and everyone else around you is learning from that as well. And again, in this model, there's a way to distribute that value to someone who contributes sort of fairly across that. And the other one, as I described earlier, is a capital formation for the teachers that make this content. Because after all, now I can actually get the benefit of an actual yield based on equity, much in the same way that you own a house. And when you own a house, you don't sell it for the price of rent. You sell it for the future forward rent that you can receive. And that's basically what's now possible for teachers. Teachers so far have been one of those cases where they are probably one of the most important people in terms of the societal value that you provide, throughout all countries, of course. But in terms of pay, actually, they're one of the sort of least paid. And that's been, I think that's a problem. And part of the reason why I think that's not possible is they've never been part of this sort of financial sort of frameworks that that many other businesses and many other industries have been able to participate in. Artists have had the same experience when you think about it in the earliest days. They were typically disintermediated by platforms. They were also the ones who, were often sort of, I would say, taken advantage of because they didn't understand how financial systems worked and so on. And so this, we hope to change with what we're doing with Tinytap.
Yes.
And of course, that's just the beginning.
And it's also about having an engaged community. And in education, active learning requires students to interact with information and participate in the process, whereas passive learning requires students to internalize information provided by a source, such as an instructor or textbook. But when you look at active learning, it activates higher order thinking and is much more intellectually stimulating and engaging. And that's really what that platform is about. And I think although the educational landscape is still dominated by passive learning, Tinytap's success with UGC, interactive education content over the past decades really indicates that parents have a strong demand for a virtual home learning environment for their children that is active, that is safe, and is high quality, with contributions from experienced teachers and educational experts around the world. So I take my hat off to you. You did something exceptional there. I want to be mindful of the time, and let's move on to you, Animoca Brands, bringing K-pop to the metaverse. So K-pop is one of the biggest cultural phenomena in the world. A report by Statista from last November showed the South Korean music industry achieved an all-time high sales revenue of more than $6.8 trillion. So now it can also grow in the metaverse. Tell me more about Anycube.
So Anycube is a joint venture between us and Cube Entertainment. And, Animoca Brands has multiple relationships, whether it's ourselves or through the Sandbox, for instance, with areas like K-pop, like, most recently Sandbox also announced a partnership with SM Entertainment. But specifically on Anycube, the joint venture that we have is we're basically taking some of the famous K-pop artists like G-Idol and moving them into the metaverse, as well as creating new content and new characters for the metaverse. Now, when you're an entertainment brand, any entertainment brand, regardless of whether it's K-pop or not, where's your audience? What's your audience in which you're appealing to? Well, of course, in many cases, it's the next generation. And where are most of the next generation sort of folks hanging out, shall we say, right? They're playing video games, they're in the metaverse today. And so it makes a lot of sense for any brand, and especially in the entertainment side, to actually engage in that medium. Now, the one thing about K-pop in particular, in Korea as a market, is that you have to remember that Korea, less than 3 or 4 decades ago, was at the bottom tier of the economic potential in the world. It was maybe in the bottom 150 countries in the world. Today, from a GDP standpoint, it's in the top 15. It doesn't have oil, it doesn't have natural resources, it had culture. And what Korea really did was they focused heavily on the promotion of that culture. They gave them broadband and they gave them access and network speeds and all these things in the early days, in the 90s, when everyone thought that was ridiculous. So Korea in particular actually is very well attuned to the idea of sort of a digital future, because in fact, Korea's potential all came from that. Many of the biggest gaming companies are Korean. Many of the largest entertainment companies who understood how to sort of take advantage of these digital environments are Korean companies. So they really understand this very, very well.
It's interesting because, you have two incredibly proprietary companies like Anycube and Tinytap. You're really kind of understanding the space exceptionally well to be able to be such a forward thinker and innovator, because essentially this is what these are the types of infrastructures and the types of platforms that we're going to need more of going into Web3. So with Anycube, set to create a music metaverse and issue NFTs and ecosystem tokens based on the intellectual property rights of Cube's entertainment, globally popular K-pop music artists and actors. Again, you're doing something tying in and engaging that community, shifting it almost like you said, trying to understand where all of this is. So, and for those of you that are still on the airwaves, Anycube is also bringing Cube Entertainment artists to the Sandbox, like Yat said. And if you haven't heard of the Sandbox, it's a leading decentralized gaming virtual world, and of course, a subsidiary of Animoca Brands. Well, this brings us to the end of our segment. I just wanted to thank you, Yat, for coming on. You're full of insight. It's always a pleasure listening to you speak. You are definitely one of my experts at hand.
Thank you.
Guys, you definitely have to check out Animoca Brands. Head to their website, animocabrands.com, and you can follow Yat on the social gram at YSIU. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. That was our Crypto Frontier segment brought to you by CCP Digital. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by CCP Digital, bringing you a view from inside blockchain, cryptocurrency, and NFTs. Introducing the latest Blockchain Heroes series, Retro Rebellion NFT collectible card packs from the Nifty Company. Available January 2022. Find out more online at ccpdigital.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcoming back to our Crypto Frontier segment brought to us by CCP Digital. We're chatting with Yat Siu of Animoca Brands, chairman, and we are talking about the need to disrupt technocracy and the rise of data sovereignty. Yat, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's dive right into these crazy concepts that we're now talking about coming into this era of Web3. So in my point of view, the primary driver for the fast growing interest in the metaverse is because companies now recognize that investing in the metaverse presents a more compelling form of creating business value than investing in technology, for instance, to increase efficiencies. And companies see the metaverse as a new way to engage their clients and really create new growth opportunities. The fear of missing out, so to speak, FOMO, is also a significant driver. I think companies look at what other companies in their industry are doing as a way to both gain ideas and build conviction that they too should invest in initiatives in the metaverse, so to speak. Talk to me about data sovereignty and the need to disrupt technocracy in order for the metaverse to flourish in Web 3.0.
So I think before we go there, one of the things I want to point out is that, Web3 is more than sort of a technology, shall we say, as in blockchain. Similarly to how maybe 30 years ago, a lot of people described the internet as a utility. In fact, we know that the internet was more than that. It was a kind of social revolution. And Web3 is exactly that as well. And the revolution in question here, and the whole point that you're just making about sort of disrupting the technocracy that we have, or these digital fiefdoms, is the fact that data is now the most valuable resource on Earth. And the reason why data is so powerful is it has the ability to construct limitless network effects. And by that, I mean that when you think of, valuable resources in the past, say whether it's like food materials or oil and so on, you create awesome network effects from them, whether they can power our cars, they give us energy, but there's a point where there's a limit to that. And now actually with data, as we have seen with innovation and invention and creation, in fact, human data in particular, we can create all these awesome things time and time again in a limitless fashion. It's the story of humanity where we come up with great ideas, we come up with innovations and inventions, and they change the world. And in fact, it is our ideation that gives value to these items and assets. The problem is that right now, all this time and attention that comes from our data is currently actually farmed by the platforms. The way we think of it is that each and every one of us who are currently spending time on Facebook or Instagram or all these platforms that we're currently loving to use for the most part, is actually us working for free for these platforms. And the reason they can do this is because we don't understand the value of our data. Now, imagine if there was sort of a ticker that said, today you earn $50 with your data or $100 with your data, then your perspective on your time and your data would change.
Yeah.
But we don't have this information. Now, this was not that dissimilar from 30 years ago when a rice farmer, for instance, in China or Vietnam, would be selling his rice for literally sort of cents, cents on the dollar, because he didn't know what the real price of his rice was sold for. But then when the internet came, he was able to see, wait a second, my rice is being sold for $10. I need to take my fair share, whether this is, $1, $2, $3, at least a percentage. That was actually one that was more equivalent. And it also allowed for the formation of a true market, because now competition can come in as well and say, oh, wait a second, actually, this is the value, this is the arbitrage, this is the price benefit. I'll give you a better price. I'll sell the rice from you. And so it created, basically a fair transaction platform, for these type of commodities. So data is the one commodity where we don't have this, because it's all hidden behind the sort of walled data kingdoms. And so the way we think of the world today is that we're working for free. We're basically digital serfs living in these sort of digital kingdoms whether it's the house of Google,
Yeah.
basically the kingdom of Facebook.
Yeah.
And we've been digitally colonized.
And I'm going to piggyback off of exactly what you said. Yes, that the data, what will make or break really the metaverse will be its ability to capture data from its surroundings. Really is what I believe, because the only way to do that will be by mass ingestion of the incoming data, and only with this data will we be able to create a rich and meaningful environment. But the next need after seeing will be interacting, meaning that the data not only needs to be represented in a meaningful way, but it also must be responsive. What types of innovations do you foresee being implemented to cater to data responsiveness in the metaverse?
So I think the very biggest innovation that will change us, in terms of the data responsiveness that you described, actually, I think will ultimately be one that will take more of a legal shape. And in that structure, I mean, it's going to be property rights. So when you think about sort of how human the whole human libertarian value, if you want to say, right, and sort of the growth of what we have today in functioning democracies and the ability to innovate on top of the ownership of others, came from the principle actually of ownership. And that's also the reason why we can have capitalism, and that's one of the reasons why we have the political systems that we have today. Everything else came because of that, and that's missing in the digital world right now. Now, when you actually have property rights in the digital world, that actually means that all of the same frameworks that we see in the physical world will apply in the digital world as well. So an example, if you own a digital asset as you do in the physical world, then the ability for you to transact and to do a partnership or do a new creation only needs the permission from the owner of that particular data set. Or in this case, if you own a car, for instance, if you own a car, you have that's the reason why Uber or Grab or Lyft or car wash companies or people who make tires or people who make baby seats, right? These are companies that were able to permissionlessly create a new business on top of the ownership of other people who own cars,
Right.
without ever having to go back and seek permission from, Tesla or Volkswagen or Mercedes, for instance. And that paradigm is missing. And so once you have that, then there's going to be all sorts of decentralized new opportunities that come out without on a permissionless basis, without needing the permission from the platforms. And that is going to sort of mushroom in growth and is going to create incredibly new sort of business innovations. And this will obviously be one thing that ultimately will then also be protected by legal rights as well. Because right now, one of the big differences in the sort of data world is that data isn't technically a property right yet. And so it can only be protected by a contract right. So the legal frameworks are different, which is the reason why when you click through to your agreement and you use Facebook and you're essentially surrendering all of the network effects from your data, it's legal. But you can't do that when it's basically your own liberties, right? When it comes to your own rights, nobody can sort of put you into slavery. Basically the Constitution won't allow you to do that.
Yeah.
But in the data world, it hasn't received that treatment yet. But with blockchain, now that we can actually have ownership, we think that paradigm will change. Because before you could argue that what is ownership, in the frame of data anyway. But with blockchain, now you can have that ownership paradigm, which we think then will ultimately turn into a legal right, and ultimately, data and data ownership will also be a human right.
Absolutely. This is the rise of the creator economy. This is power to the people. And this is really coming into Web3. If you're understanding this stuff and you're really conceptualizing it on how it could benefit your business, yourself, it really puts a new spin on reality and on what being independent and autonomous truly means, because decentralization puts the power in the hands of users to easily retain their communities and move to the platforms that support them rather than keep them forcibly trapped where their history remains controlled, like on Facebook, Twitter, and all those big platforms. So you're 100% right, my friend. Thank you so much for the wise words that you have shared with us today. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Guys, you definitely have to check out Yatsu. He's on Twitter. He's on the gram. He's everywhere at YSIU. And check out Animoca Brands at animocabrands.com. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. That was our Crypto Frontier segment brought to you by CCP Digital. We'll be right back after this.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Caldwell Soames Incorporated, investing globally in transformative businesses like Original Digital Corporation, or ODC. ODC develops advanced consumer and commercial fintech solutions such as OG Pay, which will transform the way you manage your money. From sending and receiving money globally for free, paying for goods and services in person and online, pay bills, buy and sell digital currencies, all while earning interest. OG Pay is easy to set up, FDIC insured, and your information is secured. Check out ogpay.com.
Welcome back, my beautiful friends. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Up next, in our all-new Politigal segment brought to us by Caldwell Soames, we have Patriot artist Scott Lebado. Now, for those unfamiliar with Scott, the mainstream media have been shadow banning Scott's main pages and censoring his art and free speech. And for 30 years, Scott Lebado has been a voice fighting with you on so many issues, promoting and celebrating old glory, those who serve in our great American way, using his art, heart, and passion, advocating as a giant voice for the American people through unusual and at times suspect art. Now, after all these years, his story is being told. The Relentless Patriot is a documentary that's going to take you through Scott's life, from his true American childhood to his start in the arts, his calling to patriotism, his first creative protest, the amazing art he creates to benefit and support our veterans, his many arrests, the 50-state flag painting tours across America, right down to his passionate patriotic canvas and sculpture art. And here to chat patriotism and art is Scott Lebado. Welcome to the show, superstar.
Thanks for having me.
All right, talk to me about this documentary film, The Relentless Patriot, which is a profile on you. Talk to me about what inspired you and Christopher Martini, your director, to make this film.
It's funny. He came to do an interview for me for a different patriotic documentary he was working on, and we sat here for 2 hours when it was supposed to be 20 minutes because I had him so intrigued. And he said, "The heck with this documentary, I'm doing your documentary." And I was excited about it because I think right now, in the way the world is, and this country is, and what I've done for 30 years, I think it was time, because, people are going to say, so he's an artist that paints flags. How can that be interesting? It's more than just painting flags. It's about I'm an activist as well, a pro-American activist, a conservative-leaning Republican activist in New York City, which is the biggest liberal city. So you can imagine what it was like for an artist of my ideology to try to succeed in the art world here. And they threw me out like a leper. They totally just abandoned me because of my ideology and who I am and what I believe in. See, the art world is supposed to be open-minded and tolerant, right? As we know, right? That's what they claim. Except if you're a, straight white, NRA, Second Amendment, NASCAR, Republican, Trump supporter. No way can this guy be an artist. The heck with him. He's out. And this was back in the 90s. And I said, you know what? I don't want you either, because you're a bunch of hypocritical elitists, okay, that you only make somebody a great artist if they succumb to your specific isms in your club. So it's nice that I've kind of succeeded without the blessings of the art world. And that's kind of what it's about, and me fighting the political correctness creatively.
Your art is absolutely fantastic, by the way, and I can't wait to see this film because I think it's going to sum up everything that you've been fighting for all these years. And when you look at some of these statistics, Scott, the very idea of patriotism does risk becoming a partisan marker, because in 2019, 76% of Republicans and only 22% of Democrats said they were extremely proud to be American. And a recent poll asked Americans whether they would fight or flee if the country were invaded. 68% of Republicans said that they would stay and fight, compared with only 40% of Democrats. That's a big difference. What do you say to this?
That's pretty interesting and kind of scary. It's funny when people say, "Scott, we're going to come to a civil war. It's going to be," I said, no. It's if we do come to a civil war, it'll last a half an hour because of what you just said, because of exactly what you just said. And also, Second Amendment, that's on our side. So if there is a civil war, it's going to be over in a half an hour. But it's kind of sad, my great grandparents came to this country many years ago, and no matter how much they struggled, and they did, as did my grandparents and my parents, but that flag was always up. No matter what struggle they were having, that flag was always up because they knew that they could get better. They could make their lives better, not for them, but for their children. And to see, when I see people desecrate the flag, kneel for the on the flag, desecrate the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem, and it's these spoiled, wealthy, successful people, athletes, millionaires, movie stars, gazillionaires, and if they don't like one thing, the flag is taboo. America sucks. It's not like that. That's what makes this country great. We're only 246 years old. We are a puppy on this stage. We are that's what I love about it, is that, look, the black community, the gay community. Yes, it took a long time, but you fight for something and you get what you fight for. But when you do fight for something in this country, like I do, nobody has fought more and expressed my grievances against the government, both local and the big government. Nobody more than me. But every time I protest, and there's been thousands of them, that American flag is with me, because that is the one thing, that beautiful, beautiful work of art. The American flag is the one thing that gives you the right to express your grievances.
Well said.
Boggles my mind.
And no, but listen, Scott, it's the truth. And if you look at conservatives, Republicans, they often say that liberals don't really like this country. And the figures, the statistics we were talking about just earlier really does suggest that they have a point there, because in progressive circles, claiming patriotism, like I said, is at best an eyebrow raiser. What? You're a patriot? And as the 246th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence arrived in a country with the world's highest incarceration rate, sky-high per capita carbon emissions, an epidemic of gun violence that's just disgusting, and abortion bans across much of the American map, obviously there is progressive disgust that kind of has its merits, and that's hard to argue. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it's very simple. Okay, the reason we are like this right now, okay, it's one reason is that the left, the radical progressive left, 5-10 years ago, took it to the stratosphere. This country goes like this. We go left, like in the 70s, we were a little more lefty, a little more freedom and all of that stuff. And then in the 80s, we got a little more conservative. But you see my hands? You can see both my hands. That's how this works. The left took it to the stratosphere. And what did they do? They woke up the beast. They woke up middle America. Now, people think, and all these liberal pockets in these big cities, there's 10 million here, 8 million there, 20 million there, maybe 40 million. There's 350 million people that are the gears. These are the gears that keep this great machine going. And that is middle America. Not necessarily conservative, but just regular people. And the left went out of control, and they woke up the beast. And they woke up the beast. They're not going to sit down.
No, they're not. They're not going to wait. They're going to keep going. And we have about 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get it all in. When we look at America today, America faces threats to national well-being and even survival. We have climate change, racial inequality, oligarchy, the economic collapse of entire regions. But the enemy is not an invader. These slow-moving crises pit us against one another, spewing our carbon and damaging the earth, living in our economically and ideologically segregated neighborhoods and regions, trading accusations of bigotry and bad faith. Looks like we are one another's problem here, Scott. In your opinion, what do you think the biggest issue currently facing Americans is? We have about 2 minutes.
It's a tough question, because there's so many aspects of why it is. And again, I got to go back to that. We have to have this balance. The radical left, I can't say it enough, they went too far. We need to come back to that balance. We're always going to have discourse. Look, there will always be homophobes, racists, bigots. That is individual. That is the nature of humanity. It is not systemic. And the media and the radical left and the school systems teach these kids and everybody else and brainwash them that America sucks, it's bad, it's oppressive, and it's out of control. The left across the board, media, big tech, the politicians have to bring it down, and we can get back to a basic level where we used to be. Not perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. If it was perfect, I would leave the planet. This is sexy. That keeps us alive and keeps our brains working when we have discourse. But at this point, it's horrible. And there's one side that doesn't understand what they're doing wrong, and they have to. And when they do, we'll get back to normal.
True. Very true. And I love it that you are using your art to really display your emotions here with respect to patriotism, because you convey so much meaning in one piece of art. And I know it takes you a long time to really curate and put that together, but you should definitely consider running for office. At the end of the day, when you look at this, by the same token, right? Peaceful political change, Scott, is much harder among people who fear and mistrust one another like we do right now in America, people who feel it intolerable for the other side to hold power. And only a quarter of Republicans and only about 2/5 of Democrats believe the other party's voters sincerely have the country's best interests at heart. So on the whole, Americans suspect that they live among people who are trying to destroy the country and quite possibly to destroy them. And to your point, in a democracy, even a flawed one, patriotism supports our best chance to live as equals without a doubt. So thank you for bringing that to the platform.
Patriotism, a patriotic community, is a prosperous community.
Guys, please check him out on the gram at Scott Lebado. Check out his film, The Relentless Patriot. That was our Politigal segment brought to you by Caldwell Soames. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. We'll be right back after this.
If you've missed out dining in New York City for the past year, it's time to visit the legendary Vice Cucina. Located in the heart of Midtown, Vice specializes in blending delicious Northern Italian and American cuisine with dishes such as the incredible taglione lobster, ravioli masala, ossobuco, and pappardelle al telefono, along with many other mouthwatering offerings. You deserve a great night out. Call Vice Cucina 212-757-2600 or online at vicecucina.com.
A Moment of Zen is brought to you by Hi There, a creative community exploring the culture, craft, and science of cannabis. Hi There believes that we have a collective responsibility towards eradicating the stigma, misinformation, and inequities surrounding this plant so we can unlock its true potential for all. To become involved and find out what all the excitement is about, download the Hi There app from the App Store and Google Play. Hi There, HIGHTHERE.
Well, that's a wrap, my dear friends. That brings us at the end of our date. Remember to join me right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, every Saturday night from 9 to 10 p.m. Or you can head to 710WOR.iHeart.com/A Moment of Zen. And remember that we're now on TV. You can download the KP Media TV app on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, or Android TV. And you can tune in at impact.kpmedia.tv and catch A Moment of Zen on the Impact Live channel Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern. All episodes are now available on demand. Thank you for listening to A Moment of Zen. It's been an absolute pleasure being your host. Thanks again to all of our sponsors that make it all possible. And remember, happiness is the only thing that multiplies when you share it.